Hey there folks, it's me TheTacticalBrit, and I've recently been playing Mercury on Battlefield 5, and today I'm going to give you my opinions on it. Now unfortunately they decided to release the map a day early whilst I was in the middle of building my brand new PC, which I gotta say looks fantastic, and there will be some video series appearing on the channel about this build in the upcoming future before I head out to EA Play. But on to Mercury. Now, this is something I think a lot of people have been looking forward to for a long time now. Battlefield in general just hasn't given us a lot of content, and I have to say, for the first time in a while after watching the trailer for the map, I actually felt genuinely excited about something that was happening on Battlefield 5, which isn't a feeling I've had in quite a while. You know, that kind of Battlefield trailer buzz that I think has kind of gone amiss in this new setting, and kind of gone amiss in this new live service as well, which I think is a bit of a shame. But finally Mercury is here, and it actually ends up being one of the best maps I've played in Battlefield so far, and I'm going to give you my full rundown on opinions on it, and I will start off with the negatives and then go into the positives, because I feel there's definitely a few things here that could definitely improve in order to really boost the overall feel of this map, but more importantly in terms of a prospect for the future. With every map that DICE makes, like Mercury for example, there's always the potential that that map could end up laying down the foundations for a future map, and you know, things like Arras for example are in my opinion the frameworks that need to be used for all future content in Battlefield 5, because it incorporates everything we love about the franchise in one map. Same with things like Operation Firestorm and some of the previous maps in previous games. So let's run into the negatives. Well, to begin with, the map is lacking cover in certain locations. Alongside certain flags that are placed on hilltops and definitely towards the airstrip, it feels as though there could just be a few more things, perhaps a bit more hard cover, maybe some barriers, maybe a few more gullies and things like that, that would really improve the situation on the map. It's presently alright at the moment. I'd say that if you have smoke grenades and if you have a sort of tactical awareness of what's going on around you, then it's definitely possible to still navigate the map without having significant amounts of trouble. However, in my opinion, at the moment there's just far too much open stretches of space in some of these locations, and for the average player it can be quite daunting. As much as I feel smoke grenades are a necessary component of things like Breakthrough and things like Conquest, I don't believe they should be as necessary as they presently are in order to make progress on these objectives. So I'm really hoping that we see a bit of a rejig here. Just a few more things would be nice. A few more trenches would make the difference. And some of the actual areas of this location, like the airstrip, already do this fairly well. If you head to the north side of it at the moment, you'll definitely see a few trenches and gullies that people can use, but we just need a few more of them. That's literally all it is, or maybe even like some explosive craters to use as foxholes. And really simple things like that can definitely improve the overall feel of an objective. You know, sometimes Battlefield does have this issue where open stretches of space just become too problematic and lots of people die. Now, I'm not saying they should be completely devoid of that. The objective that's definitely sitting on at the top, like the radio station, does need to have open stretches of space, but, you know, you don't want to be condemned to death just for running down a hill. There needs to be some kind of reasonable escape that a skillful player could make. The next thing I change is definitely a bit more verticality in some places like the urban areas, and this isn't in order to, you know, improve the infantry gameplay. This is actually more to reduce some of the line of sights that are available on the map. I had a quick discussion with a few other YouTubers and streamers on Twitter about this, and, you know, after playing it for a while and having a look at it, there is in fact just a touch too many line of sights at the moment in the game, and that definitely allows snipers and kind of negative out-of-the-box playstyles to thrive. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't be able to sit back and snipe and do things like that with tanks as well. I just don't think that the current state of affairs on maps allows people to do that in a positive manner. In fact, in some of the gameplay you'll see today, my tank does sit on a hill and it does rain down death from above, and admittedly, whilst I do believe that sometimes in most scenarios that's a bit of a scummy tactic and it isn't great for team play, in this situation it was actually quite beneficial because it meant that I could support the infantry movement because I was taking out all the possible threats that they could face. Now, with less line of sights in the game, like the expansive ones we're seeing in Mercury, I think it encourages more bounce-to-bounce gameplay, where people will head towards objectives more proactively and won't sit in locations like hilltops. That kind of adjustment can only really be positive to the flow between objectives, which is definitely something that is very important in a map like Mercury, where objective gameplay is quite heavy on both breakthrough and conquest. And I feel just, that kind of adjustment can really encourage players to play in a more positive playstyle that will be of benefit to the overall player base, not just, the odd sniper here or there. And finally, I feel there's been a little bit of a missed opportunity here. There is an island on the map at the moment that's slightly outside the play zone, and I feel as though it actually would have been really cool to see this included. Whether a bridge runs between the mainland and the island, or if there's a small array of boats available, stuff like that I think could be really cool. It's a little bit out of the way, but sometimes objectives like an island really improve the overall gameplay of Battlefield, and it gives people a place to focus on. Now, I'm not saying that these focus points like the bridge on Twisted Steel should completely dominate every objective, but just mix it up a little bit. I feel like that could have been a really cool idea, and in my opinion, just a little bit of a missed opportunity. Hopefully it's something we see in the future. But moving on to the positives, and wow, there are a lot of them. I'm really impressed with Mercury. I wouldn't say that it was worth the wait, mostly just because it took ages and ages and ages, but in terms of the fact that it's a map, and just on the basis of a map as a whole, I'd rate it a solid 8 or 9 out of 10. I think it's a fantastic map in Battlefield, for a number of reasons. For starters, I mean, just look at the color palette that is available presently in this game. It's always been quite bland and always been very Eurocentric and fields and meh, and finally this map comes along and says, you know what, get the goddamn airbrushes out and let's just go to town. And it's insane, it looks fantastic, and this level of variance is what we want in future DLC. I think this is very much why people are calling for things like the Pacific Front, is because they don't see that variance in the base game as it presently stands, and something as simple as just a various different color palette, changing the look of a few buildings. And I say simple, I understand that it is quite difficult from a development standpoint, but something like that can make all the difference for people like me who play the game on a regular basis, and guys like you at home. It feels fresh, it feels great, it looks fantastic, and I really hope we get to see more of stuff like that in the upcoming DLCs. Next up, I think this is fantastic, and it's the flow between objectives, both on Breakthrough and Conquest. It's really great to see how infantry moves between these objectives, and it's a very positive manner. Things are fantastic, they look great, players are bouncing between objectives at a good rate because it's encouraged by the map quite well, and that kind of gameplay flow is very positive, especially in some of the urban environments, and it just means that players have the opportunity to have various different experiences at each of the objectives on a singular map, which can only really be a good thing. Moving on, we have the asymmetrical gameplay. Now, I actually quite like this. It's difficult to tell at the moment whether or not it's affecting balancing, and I'm sure there will be some telemetry that DICE will have that will let us know more about that. But in terms of just, having a system whereby things like asymmetrical gameplay is possible, is quite cool, and I'd be happy to see more of it provided it's balanced in the future. The thing I've noticed about this asymmetry at the moment is that it really does provide the opportunity for individual players to shine in situations. One of the issues I think we're seeing in Battlefield at the moment is people complaining about things like certain aspects of the game being under or overpowered. For example, people complain that bombers at the moment are very overpowered. But it really just takes a singular person to make a difference in the game. Sometimes if I see a bomber dominating, I'll jump in a Spitfire and take the thing out the sky. And in encouraging this asymmetrical gameplay as it presently stands, I think that kind of completely removes this situation. It stops the whole, is this good enough or is this more powerful? It means that people have to use the resources they have available, like planes and tanks, in order to make things work. And in order to progress on objectives, if you see tanks being far too dominant, you need to jump in a bomber and deal with the situation. And if you see that planes are being too dominant, you need to get on some AA and make it count. And I really think this is an interesting way of doing things, and I'd like to see more of it. And finally, and my biggest thing that I appreciate about this map, in light of some of the most recent news that we've had from the game, is that they've really seemed to focus on Conquest and Breakthrough here. And it shows, because they work fantastically, and I would much rather play these two modes over and over again than 6 different various modes on the same map. Now, I appreciate that people aren't happy with the fact that we've had maps taken away from us and modes taken away from us in certain situations. Those kind of map mode combinations, front lines and stuff like that are gone now. And I understand that that's a reason to be upset, and it is a valid reason to be upset, and I totally agree with you people. But at the same time, when looking at this situation, less can be more, and Mercury definitely proves that in my opinion. Some of the older Battlefield games definitely proved it too. For example, using things like Rush game modes. Having Rush solely focused on certain maps in Bad Company 2 made that game iconic and made those modes iconic. And I really feel like focusing on things like Breakthrough and Conquest might not necessarily be a bad thing. So guys, that's it from me today, the Tactical Brit. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again in another video.